Welcome back to Ozarks Tonight. 2020 is a year that will go down in history as we continue to fight COVID-19 from spreading. Each of us has our own unique experience with how it's affected us. Kaitlyn McConnell is the author of Ozarks Alive, and one of the things that I just love about your blog is that you really work to preserve history here in the Ozarks and bring it back to life, and it's always fun to read about. Tell us about this new project that you're working on to make sure the experiences from this year won't be forgotten.
Yeah, well, COVID-19 Diaries kind of evolved over the course of several months. I started thinking about how much this time was really going to change the way that our society is, at least temporarily. We've seen a lot of different changes over the last few months. And I know that as a historian, I often really would like to learn about the times that people experienced in the past through primary source information. And, in the past, that used to be things like letters and, a lot of in-depth newspaper articles and things that were preserved. And we do have some of those things, of course. We still have newspapers and things like that, but we don't have a lot of the personal correspondence and ways that people preserve that information. And so I really wanted to try and capture what people were experiencing firsthand so that in the future, historians can really look back and learn about what the changes were that people went through. And, I say changes, some of them are probably, in the grand scheme of things, maybe small things, but just experiences and opinions on how the pandemic has affected them, whether that's, going to school or their job or, a musician or someone who has a hobby that's been affected. I think it will be really valuable to have that in the future.
And that was kind of leading into my next question, too, about what type of people you're looking to contribute to this project. Really, like you said, anybody can.
That's right. Yeah, anyone, any age. I would love to have anyone from kids all the way up to, adults in whatever age range wants to participate. I think that adds a lot to the overall content because it really widens the breadth of the experiences that people will have to talk about. So you might have a kid who has had to deal with virtual learning and they aren't used to that. What's been some of the changes they've had to deal with and how's it going? Is it going great or is this really not the best thing they've ever had to do? So opinions on that all the way up to people who are retired, even people who want to participate who are in a nursing home, maybe if they were able to do that and share about what that's been like. It's kind of the good, the bad, the in-between, the everyday, anything that someone wants to share is really what I'm looking for.
And you mentioned, back in the day, people would write letters and things of that nature. Most everybody uses a cell phone these days. So you are looking for videos for this. And tell us about how that will work. Does it need to be a certain length? Can it be any length? And what are some of the questions that you're providing just to help people get started?
Well, I really wanted to make this as kind of low bar as possible for people to participate. It doesn't need to be fancy or technical, but I figured there are enough people who have cell phones with video capabilities that would probably be the easiest way to kind of go about gathering these. And so I just, have encouraged people to just take their cell phone, point the camera towards yourself, and then just kind of talk for a few minutes. I do have some sample questions that I kind of have for people to start thinking about what they might want to say. It's been my experience that most people feel like they don't have anything to say. And so I kind of help them think through some alternatives and options of what I'm thinking about, and kind of what we talked about, the everyday things. But just kind of go through and talk through those things. And, it doesn't have to be a certain length. It could be, anywhere from a couple of minutes to maybe 5 or 6, 7 minutes. I'm not looking for a movie length production here at all. So anything that someone really wants to share. And then I, have some of the people send those files to me via WeTransfer. That's kind of the best way I found so far to do that. But email it to me. And then once we've amassed enough of these, I plan to turn them over to Missouri State University libraries where they'll become part of their oral history collection. So we'll have an ongoing place where all of these can be in one centralized location for sure as the future progresses so that people can learn from them.
What a neat project. Are you looking for a certain amount of entries altogether, or are you putting it in like a long video length? How is that going to pan out?
Kind of assume, and we'll probably work through that, once they get to the point of being turned over to MSU. But my thought would be they would be individual, at least or maybe broken down into some more manageable chunks. Because as a researcher, I always like to be able to go back and have information around each specific source of information. In this case, I think that would be each video. So I presume that they would be kind of labeled with the person's name and specific information, so we kind of understand who we're listening to and what their perspective was, and in that individual file.
And what a neat thing for someone's great-great-grandchild, perhaps, to go in and pull this tape later on down the road and see what exactly that was like for one of their ancestors, too. And you said it will be going to MSU. And also, you mentioned WeTransfer. That is a free service. We're going to pop up the information with the WeTransfer and your email address as well, so everyone has that information. Is there a certain deadline that you're looking for?
I mean, ideally, for this first round, I kind of said December 31st. If somebody wants to do it January 1st or January 2nd, I'll still take it for sure. But I just kind of want to have that first round complete. And then, unfortunately, I don't think the pandemic is going to be done by January 1st. And so we may have a second round, later on to see how things have changed even more since the first ones. And so, if people could get it in by then, that'd be great. But if they want to do it later, I'll take it.
Okay, Kaitlyn McConnell with Ozarks Alive. Thanks so much for coming on tonight to tell us about your project, and also just for having that sense of mind to preserve our history as we are living it right now.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back with more Ozarks Tonight. Keep it here.